Hello sports fans, welcome back to the Bailiwick Sport Podcast. I'm your host Elliot Corbell, and today I'm delighted to say I'm joined by my co-colleague Paul Lees. How are you, Paul?
Very good, Elliot. Yourself?
Yeah, really good, thank you, mate. We were both at the Bulls game on Saturday, a 3-0 win against Collieswood United. How did you find it?
Yeah, I felt that Bulls were back to their best, in control of the match. Despite going down to 10 men early on, it didn't seem like they had a man disadvantage. And yeah, they fully deserved the win and could have been more.
Yeah, I mean, for those who didn't see it, Harry Curtis sent off within 60 seconds. Have you seen an earlier red card than that?
Yeah, I think I probably had one myself, to be honest, Elliot. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's been a few early red cards in a professional game.
And of course, Lorne Bickley in there with a hat-trick. He's hit a real little purple patch there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's on fire now. It's good. Bulls need his goals if they're going to go on to win promotion.
Of course, a massive game in the FA Vars 5th round for the Bulls coming up this weekend against Falmouth Town. Tell us a little bit about that game. Yeah,
very excited about that. FA Vars is a great competition. You know, it's a national competition for all the non-league clubs from Step 6 and Step 5, and it's a great thing for Bulls to be in. And if they can win this game, they're in the quarterfinals and only 2 more steps away from Wembley.
Absolutely, and this is the equal furthest the Bulls have got in the competition after last year as well. So a win on Saturday would see them get the furthest they've got in this competition. As you said, 3 more wins away from a trip to Wembley. Could you imagine?
Oh, it'd be fantastic, and I'm sure there'd be a huge crowd going to Wembley Way on that day.
Absolutely.
Tell the listeners who we've got in the pod today, Corbs.
Yeah, delighted to say we're joined by local football referee Harry Walker. Of course, just got his first call up to the FA Vars as an assistant referee. Really exciting for him. And Elliot Powell, 2023 Sports Coach of the Year, St Peter's Football Club coach, and of course a gold medal winner with Team Jersey at the Ireland Games. It's a fascinating conversation we had, and we hope you enjoy. Harry, Elliot, thank you so much for joining us today, lads. Harry, we'll start with you, mate. What first got you interested in becoming a football referee?
Well, refereeing for me was the next sort of step I could make in football. When I was involved as a junior, I was playing every week, doing some coaching, and thought one of the coaches I was working with said, "You're going to end up reffing. There aren't enough refs, so whilst you're coaching junior football, it's something else that you can do and get stuck into." And it ended up being a part of football that I suppose was the most accessible for me, and at the point where I was at as 14, 15, 16, I could do it every week. It was a nice little bit of money on the side, and something really enjoyable that I got stuck right into.
And in terms of you making that step up into refereeing senior football, just 16 years of age, was there a bit of intimidation factor for you there?
Absolutely, I think it would be weird if there wasn't that nervousness going into it, but the support that Jersey FA have always provided me sort of gave me that backing and the structure I needed to know that I was confident to go out and do it, and had the support behind me to go and do senior football from that age of 16 and progress from there through the senior ranks to where I am now.
Any funny interactions with the man sitting next to you?
No, Powell's pretty chilled out, I think. Certainly, not personally, I've been fine with you.
It's because you're half decent.
So we got away with it. What he says in the clubhouse after a beer might be a bit different, but...
Talk to us there then, Elliot. What makes Harry a decent referee?
Yeah, I think firstly that... you're blushing there as well next to me already. I think that the first bit is that came into it so young. Like, I think you probably did get a little bit of leadway from the lads straight off the bat, because clearly it's a bit of an anomaly. You look at most of our referees, they're balding or grey-haired. So Harry did kind of stick out like a sore thumb, really, I think, when he started. Obviously, naturally, he's got that fitness level to get around the park, which I think helps massively. You can't criticise him in terms of his positioning. He's always up with play, but also that relatability. Harry was still playing when he started refereeing, and still does turn out now and then for Roselle. So I think that ability to relate to him, that he probably had his own game during the week or he had his own training during the week. He understood what the emotion of the game meant. He understood how much work went into it. So I always felt like he was a lot more understanding, but he's on the line tomorrow, so you should have maybe asked me on Monday.
And Harry, massive call up for you a couple of weeks ago in the FA Vars. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and how the actual day went for you.
So FA competitions are done through nominations each year. So in the early rounds of the FA Cup and FA Vars, where it's the lower ranking officials as such. They're nominated by the county FA, and there's normally a few from each county nominated. But at this stage, it's done on FA nomination, which I got through being a member of FA Court, Centre of Refereeing Excellence. So there's about 400 members up and down the country from level 3 to level 7. So just through that and some good observations, some good club marks this season, I suppose puts me up there in the merit tables, which meant I was spotted by the FA, and it was the most local game to me in that round. So I was down in Falmouth. Great day out. There was 550 people there. There was about 200 people packed into one end of the ground that there wasn't a moment of quiet from them. So I was quite thankful that I was up the other end and didn't have them in my ear for half the game.
Of course, you were running the line, weren't you?
Yeah.
How was the actual game from your perspective?
It was quite slow, really. Hartpury were a step 6 side and struggled to get out their half. So it was quite cold in the second half, and I stood there with the Falmouth back 4. But there wasn't much to it. A comfortable win for Falmouth in the end, but a great experience working with a level 3 referee, and great day out with a brilliant atmosphere.
Local referee Paul Daniels obviously retired recently from Jersey Football Association, been a referee over here for decades. What sort of influence did he play in your development?
Paul been massive for me right from when he delivered the course as a fresh-faced 14-year-old. Always been that person you can go back to. Just his knowledge and expertise are always someone you could ask any question to, and he'll give you his honest thoughts. And if he's watching a game and thinks you haven't had the best game, he'll tell you, but he does it in a way that's going to support you and provide those next steps in a beneficial way for you to go and sort of fix whatever may have happened in your next game. So Paul's massive and always supported me in everything that I've done on the pitch.
And those next steps for you in terms of your development moving forwards, professional game aspirations for you?
Absolutely. I think it would be, for anyone involved in football at any level, that has to be your aspiration. Obviously you hit a certain point where you go, well, I'm happy here. A lot of the local guys, that opportunity's probably never come around for them, but for me and where I'm at in the merit tables currently this season, if I can get a few more games in, I give myself a good chance to get into level 3 and hopefully push on from there, seeing how it can work with the FA and being based over here.
Yeah, and obviously did some work as a JFA referee development officer. Tell us a little bit about that, and also tell us now, does there seem to be a better pathway now for Jersey referees to get into officiating in England?
Yeah, absolutely so. Like the way the FA have changed the pathway now for grassroots officials especially.
Yeah.
Going from a trainee referee to a level 7, 6 and 5 has become much more accessible and more placed on the individual, as games aren't tracked over a season, they just carry over, which means for someone who's also playing, if they don't do 25 games in a season, doesn't mean they can't get promoted. They can do it over 2 seasons and work up that way. So that change from the FA is really beneficial for people to come in and still be able to access the higher levels of grassroots football. Obviously we're implementing that programme as the Jersey FA. We've run 2 training courses every year for the last 4 or 5 years now, and we've got another one coming up in most likely September, so we'll hopefully get some more young officials on that and push through from there.
Yeah, I mean there's been some good initiatives in getting younger referees involved, younger boys and girls involved in refereeing, which you see at junior levels as well, which is really encouraging. I suppose, there was a time where Jersey struggled with numbers with referees, and it kind of hindered the game, I think. We can all agree on that. Are you seeing now, through these initiatives, more interest? Yeah,
absolutely, and we're seeing a lot of the younger guys that came in 4 or 5 years ago just after me now progressing into senior football. So I think our coverage this season of senior football is something like 99%. So really, really good. And our junior stuff is, I think under 15 to under 18 is up there in the high 90s as well. And we're about 50% for under 11 to under 14, which is probably doubled from what we were 5-10 years ago with our coverage of games, which can only improve the environment for everyone. Can let players play, can let coaches coach,
yeah.
And it provides just that background for a better game, I think. So we have our referee development centre, which runs in line with the Centre of Excellence and the Player Development Centre, providing opportunities for the young officials to work as teams of 3 with a little theory session before for half an hour on a Friday night, which also allows them to work together under support of Paul Daniel, as Elliot said, and Luke Nierak, myself when I'm here, just to provide that support and that backing to talk about their games that we always try and mentor anyway, but bring these experiences together and go out on the pitch at Springfield as a team of three, which for a lot of officials that age in England would never happen.
Yeah.
They'd be turning out on the park on a Sunday morning. There might be a mentor there for a few of their games, but there's nowhere near the level of support that we're able to provide here.
Yeah, and I suppose, like you say, having that team of three, I think there's probably a period of time, Elliot, as well, where you get a referee, but there was such a shortage of officials. You'd have club linesmen.
Yeah.
And it's not an ideal situation, is it? So now you're seeing teams of three officiating, helping out at games. That must obviously make for a better game for yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the club liner is an absolute lottery. It got a good one, it can gain you 4 or 5 points a season. If you get a bad one, you're losing a few. So I think that makes a massive difference. We probably actually don't recognise that enough as a local football community. Certainly, when I was coaching up in Preston, there was never a game unless it was a cup quarter final, maybe that you got three officials, and we take that for granted. I think to the point where we'll look on, who have we got as a match official, and then you big sigh when you got Harry on the line. But you then remember actually it's better than having Sid Hallman from St Peter's on the line. So it's great to have three officials. Yeah, it makes a massive difference. I think the integrity of the league goes up. So therefore, especially from a Premiership perspective, your biggest spectacle as a local football association is properly refereed, properly officiated. There can be no 4 or 5 point kind of variances because of who's on the line. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah, and as I say, you're a referee, but you did play a bit. You're a decent goalkeeper in your time. Do you still turn out for Rosedale now and again? Do you miss the playing side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the commitment to training was what I struggled with most, because Mark LaCornia's appointments officer would want me doing a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and I'd be messaging Jodie McCarthy saying, "Oh, sorry, Joe, can't make tonight." And it's that commitment between the two, and I sort of had to choose, because then my Saturdays would either be playing or refereeing, and I'd have to make that choice again. And I realised when I thought I was going to go to uni, I had that opportunity to get myself in a best position possible to be refereeing where I am now at Step 5 and 6 in the non-league system, rather than park football on a Saturday afternoon. So I had to make that decision, but it's absolutely something I miss, and it's the team side of it. The playing isn't as much of a miss as being with the lads on a Saturday afternoon and going in the bar after.
So you're not invited in the bar after anymore?
Might not be invited, but I'll go anyway.
Depends on how you perform.
Yeah. If I've had a bad game, I'm picking up my bag and I'm off. But it's definitely something I do miss, but I had to make that choice, and playing was something that was never going to make me... Well, I was never going to make it as a player. So to have the chance to potentially make it as a referee, I had to make that decision, which was tough, and I hung on for probably a year too long, but did enjoy my playing whilst I was doing it.
Good. And it's said that a lot of footballers, and perhaps coaches too, don't fully understand the laws of the game. Would you say that's fair on certain aspects?
Yeah, definitely. There's all these little nuances where we do something that everyone kicks off about, and we're just saying, lads, it's the laws.
Yeah.
That must be so frustrating. So many rule changes.
Absolutely,
in the last few years.
The big one at the moment is handball.
Sure.
And you can read the handball law so many times, but the interpretation is going to be different for everyone. I think that's the big thing. And I think it's also what we love so much about football, that it's subjective and anything can almost happen. But another one is drop balls.
Yeah.
For years, we still stop a game now because a player's injured, and they're like, "Oh, kick it back to him." It's like, no, you can't. They had the ball, I drop it to them, and they're going to play on, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" But it's these little things. I think for the most case, everyone knows what a foul is.
Yeah.
But it's these little things where we've read up on it, so it's what we have to do, but most 95% of people in the ground probably don't know what's going on. And that's where I think it's really important that you communicate properly, so that everyone can get that and know why you're doing it.
Yeah, we've spoken before about you being really crucial on communication with players and managers and coaches on the sidelines being one of the main things about being a referee. Elliot, would you agree with that in terms of understanding a decision or a rule if you're not fully understood of what the situation is, as long as that communication is clear of why a decision's been made, then you're fine with that?
I think me and my coaching team are fully aware of the laws.
We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll put that to the test in a minute.
I think communication is that biggest aspect, and not wanting to kind of name names in this regard, but there is a massive disparity between those that do and those that don't communicate. I think we had a really, really good example from the 3 Guernsey officials last week in our game against St Clements. I thought they were superb. I thought Ben in the middle made a decision that we probably didn't agree with. Then Elliot Powell's reacted in a way which probably do agree with how he's been treated in terms of a yellow card for dissent. And then there was a potential for that to escalate to red card, but actually Ben's communication at that point just completely simmered the situation down. Elliot had his yellow card for dissent. He was off for the final 2 minutes, but he's not missing 3 games. I don't think that approach would be taken by every referee. Maybe the guy next to me would deal with it exactly that way, but there are several referees who would be dropping cards on the floor to be able to get to the next one to give you another one. So I think communication is absolutely massive, and we look at the better referees over here. Certainly Harry, people like Mark who've done it for a long period of time. Gareth this season, I think their communication's gone up a level to the point where I think sometimes you don't communicate for the guy that you're actually giving the yellow card to or giving the foul against. You're communicating to the ground, so that I can disagree agreeably on the other side, and the St Peter's old cronies can disagree with you as well, but at least they know what's been given and the reason behind it. So that communication, I think it saves you a lot of aggro, so I would encourage more referees to do it, please.
Yeah, that point you make, disagree agreeably, is massive. Like, you're not going to agree with everyone. We see it in the Premier League every week where they're looking at it on VAR 10, 15 times. We don't have that on a Saturday. We've got one look at however quick it happens, and we have to make a decision. So then it is just explaining that, and even if it is disagreed with, it's saying everyone understands a point of view.
I'll give you a hand tomorrow, mate, don't worry.
Everyone understands that point of view and can go, you know what, fair enough, thanks for explaining, rather than just standing there and saying, no, that's what I've given, without backing yourself and saying why you've done it.
Yeah. So, you said you were pretty confident on the laws of the game.
Scratch that bit.
I'm going to put you to the test. You're a bit too young to probably remember this. There used to be a cartoon strip called You Are the Ref. I don't know if you're aware of that. No? I'd say
they print it in colour, Paul? Or?
Well, I've printed it in colour. And,
good.
So, this used to be a thing, and they give you a little scenario. So I'm going to read one out to you, Elliot, and you're going to try and answer it.
Do I get call a friend?
No?
No. Lacorni's on speed dial.
So here's a scenario for you. A defender jumps up and down in front of a forward who is trying to take a quick throw. So the attacker throws the ball at him, collects the rebound, races away and scores. Goal or no goal?
No goal and a yellow card to the defender.
Why are you punishing the defender when the attacker... The defender's
He's jumping up, you've got to give him a meter, haven't you?
But the attacker has scored. So why are you going to punish the attacker by giving a free kick?
You ever watched you ref, mate? That whistle's in straight away. Cards out. Watch the game back tomorrow and tell you. What would be the answer then?
So this is Keith Hackett's verdict. Obviously Keith is the
former PGMOL chief.
There we go. And top referee of his day. He says, assuming the throw wasn't unduly hard or intended to cause injury, the attacker hasn't committed any offence here, so award the goal. As for the defender, he didn't actually delay the restart, so he avoids a booking this time, but have a word, warn him that if he does this again, he'll be cautioned. The laws require him to be 2 metres away from the point at which the ball is thrown, and he must know that.
See, where I struggle with something like that is there's a subjective element there of did he throw the ball with intent to hurt someone, and people standing behind, if this is a Premier League game, people standing behind you will have very firm opinions on that, and the opposition would have the complete opposite, and that would feel like a lose-lose to me.
Yeah. Plenty of people have firm opinions on a lot of things in football, and it's open to interpretation, isn't it? Everything. That's the problem with football officiating. The referee officiating in football is so many laws are open to interpretation. So sometimes you lack that consistency, what people really see. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing where one day I could interpret something differently to what someone else does the next week. And a lot of coaches, that probably annoys you because you get it one way one week and a different way another week. But the interpretation of law, they might still be right in law, but their interpretation could be different.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult thing, and where a lot of work is going on at the moment amongst the refereeing community to be as consistent as possible with everything.
Yeah.
And that if I do something one week, someone else does the same thing another week. And it is that interpretation of where Keith said on that cartoon pool, have they thrown it in a way that is, would you deem as aggressive attitude or violent conduct? And then you have a decision if you're cautioning the attacker or sending off the attacker, or have they done it in a way that is acceptable and they're just bouncing the ball off them to play on?
Yeah.
So you've got 3 situations coming out of that one scenario, and you've got half a second to decide what you're doing.
Who did that? Who did that for Arsenal? When it ball hit him and then he fell over like an idiot.
Alexis Sanchez,
wasn't it? And he looked around and then grabbed his face and fell over.
And that's also our problem. That out in the middle we've got players doing that, and you're thinking, what's actually happened here?
Yeah.
And the big one at the moment is a tackle goes in. It might be hard, it might be fair, but the contact's on the top of their toe and they're grabbing halfway up their shin. And you're going, well, point of contact's a big difference if you might go yellow, red, or just a foul.
Yeah.
And you've got that, if you can't exactly see it, you might have a little look where the player's holding. So making that decision is always difficult.
Interesting point.
One for you then, Corbs.
Me.
All right, I'll give you this one. A keeper drags down a striker in a one-on-one. You blow your whistle and point to the spot only to see the ball carrying on rolling and end up in the net. Do you now give the goal instead?
Well, I had this play for St John's a couple of weeks ago where I completely halved a striker going around it. The ball didn't end up in the net, but I remember my centre-back trying to moan to the ref saying that I'd got the ball, and I was like, I've hacked him. I think I'm probably correct in saying if you blow your whistle, you've made your decision.
Yeah.
If he was on his way and then saw the ball was going in and changed his mind, I think that's fair enough. A bit like giving an advantage, isn't it? But I think if you blow your whistle, you've kind of made your bed there and you've got to sleep.
Quite similar to the Arsenal-Barcelona Champions League final, maybe 2004, 2005, when Lehmann half the Barca lad, didn't he? And then Julie stick it into the net.
Yeah.
But he'd already blown his whistle, sent off Lehmann for denying goal scoring, whereas if he could have probably just let it go and the final would have been better. I think Arsenal 1-0 up at the time, weren't they? Campbell scored. So that sounds like a shocker from a ref.
There was a recent one with City on the break as well, wasn't there, where he pulled it back for
Simon Hooper.
Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, as soon as your whistle's gone, that's it, the ball's dead, even if it then rolls in. And that's a big thing with us, with what Elliot just said about that denial of a goal scoring opportunity. A lot of the time we'll blow our whistle and then all of a sudden a player picks it up and you're going, yeah, but you've got there because the defenders have all stopped when I've blown my whistle. So you have a load of people, again, a load uproar, thinking, oh, it's this, it's that, but actually at the point I've blown my whistle, that attacker's 10 yards away and the defender's 5 yards in front of him. And again, your communication of that exact point comes into importance. So if you've just gone, no, I've blown my whistle, go away, no one will understand what you mean. No. But if you're clear about that. And say, that's why, when the whistle went, he was closer to the ball than you, that's why I've blown it and not given you the advantage. Some players might take it, some won't.
Well, this one was a bit more black and white. And Keith Hackett says, it's too late for that. This is poor officiating. You should always delay a decision in cases like this. One for you then, Harry, to finish off. And this isn't on the cartoon strip. You are the ref. It's an under-13 match between the two best teams in the league. As an official referee hasn't been appointed, you, as a home team's coach, will take charge of the match. Things are tight, then, with about 10 minutes to play, your star striker is through one-on-one. The goalkeeper comes flying out and intentionally takes out your star striker outside the penalty area. What do you do? And remember, you're the home coach as well, and it's an under-13 game.
You're taking this from your diary when you were an under-13 coach.
Funny you say that.
As a home coach, it's your responsibility as a referee. You have the full powers of official, so you can caution and send off. Thinking back to when you were the referee and I was that player that came out and wiped someone out, I think you let me away with it, and I was back in goal for the free
kick. That's exactly what I was referring to.
It was up at St Peter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was St. Peter's versus St Clement's under 13. Harry Walker was the under 13 goalkeeper, and obviously I'm the home ref, and I'm given this situation where I think Toby Ritzmer was.
I think it was Toby. And I've flown out and cleaned him out.
Yeah, and Harry just absolutely wiped him out, and it was a guaranteed goal. And but you know, I couldn't.
What did you do?
I let him off, didn't I? I didn't have any cards in my pocket, so I couldn't even give a yellow, couldn't even give a ticket down. So I let him off because I didn't feel, in my position as a coach of St Peter, that I could send off.
And it is really difficult, and that's why we try and get referees to as many junior games as possible, especially once they become competitive, or even at under 11, under 12, 13, if we know that it's two teams that are both decent teams are going to provide each other a good game, that they're always the games we'd prioritise to try and get a referee to. Yeah. To hope that we don't have to put a coach in that position that you were in when I decided someone wasn't going to score.
It's fascinating. Like I know the three of us have experience in officiating other sports as well. In cricket, like I've done an awful lot of coach umpiring junior cricket, and it's the exact same thing. If you're a home official in the same sort of sense, and you know your star player gets smashed halfway up his front pad, you do have a decision to make, and it's I've found previously it's just about, if you're going to have officials in that situation, you discuss with if their coach as well is umpiring as well as right, let's just do this properly, and usually it turns out okay. But I've seen some shockers. Absolute shockers over the years, and coming on nicely to you, Elliot. A heck of a 2023 for you personally. Congratulations on being awarded Coach of the Year and for a Sports Personality of the Year award as well this year. How's the last 24 months, last 12 months been for you personally?
Yeah, quite whirlwind. I think you kind of don't expect that level of success. Obviously, there were a couple of disappointments in there as well. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, with a couple of cup final defeats where we just really didn't turn up. But certainly the league title and then the Upton after that was really, really memorable, and I thought that was probably going to be as good as it gets. But then the Marathi, working with Cass for that day and that whole day out was a great experience. And then obviously the situation that happened with Cass and his resignation, the Island Games job kind of fell in my lap, mainly as the timelines were so tight to look at doing anything else. So right place, right time, and then that whole week as well was just one of those things where I think we could have played Ewan left wing and it would have probably worked. Like every decision we made just seemed to come off, and we always felt like we maybe didn't get the rub of the luck of the green in some of them, some of the games of bounces not quite falling to us, or not getting penalty decisions, etc. But actually, when we look back, the decisions we made worked, and there's a little bit of luck in that as well. So a phenomenal year, and really, really grateful for the accolades that have come with that. Slightly imposter syndrome with it, because there's a lot of coaches that put a lot of work into that as well. And whilst I spearhead those teams, especially Gartz in particular, he deserves on his name on all of those trophies as well. And my dad at St Peter's, Dave with the JFA as well, Richard with the JFA, Andy Dewhurst with both St Peter's and the JFA. There's been a lot of people that put a lot of work into that. Even your reserves team managers, your C team managers, under 18s manager last year, Jody, and the players he was bringing through for us from a first team perspective, all of their contributions made that success. So you do feel a little bit embarrassed picking up a trophy when there's so many people that have contributed to it.
And we mentioned before about Harry starting off in senior football as a referee at such a young age. You walk into a senior dressing room at St Peter's. Am I right in saying 2022?
22, so I'd done a little bit before that. So kind of
St John before that.
St John before that, and then up at Forward Park Rangers in Preston before that. So very, very different. All three were really different changing rooms. I think Forward was your absolute kind of dog and duck Sunday team. With some talented players that were playing decent level Saturday football as well over there. went up there to play originally, and then the year that I went to uni, I fractured my patella, and kind of playing took a little bit of a back seat from that perspective. I decided to go on a lads' holiday to sunny beach in Bulgaria rather than get the op. So a decision that 7 years later I kind of regret, because he's pretty sore. Yeah, good trip. So up went and played a bit up there, but just knew that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Really, I was playing with my brother, which was great. Something that obviously my brother, same dad, different mums, but my brother's lived in Preston for his whole life really since he was 3. So the opportunity to go and train and play with him and spend a lot more time with him was really, really important to me. And then we quite quickly found ourselves in a bit of a relegation battle up there. Manager stepped aside. I did a couple of temporary games, managed to stay up that year. Second last game of the season, I think we stayed up. So that was great. And then there was a new manager came in, and he wanted me to keep doing the coaching element whilst I was at uni. So John O'Halloran, the manager at the time, he brought in some really good players. I did all of the training sessions, the coaching, and we kind of formed a quite good partnership. Got promoted the year that I left. I finished uni, and then FPR did another season at that higher level. So that was a really, really good experience. And then coming back to Jersey, my mate Jamie Clayton got in touch saying, I'd come and play at St John's, and I kind of gave the spiel that I've just given there, that playing wasn't really for me anymore. He said, we'll coach then. I was like, no, I'm not interested at all. I didn't really want to get into football coaching. I'd done a little bit at Roselle as a junior coach, but I hadn't really got an appetite for it in local football. Somehow he dragged me up to St John's pub. We had a meeting with all the players, all 4 of them, and they were really kind of on their arse, to be fair, as a club. My dad decided that he'd give me a little bit of a hand. We'd just do pre-season. And then just doing pre-season drew us against St Paul's and Trinity in the Charity Cup. You feel pretty hard done by when you get St Paul's at the time, who hadn't lost in about 7 years, and then Trinity, who had Ruben Mendes, Carl Hines, Jason Andrade. They had a very good team at that point as well, and we thought we'd been absolutely stuffed there really. But we competed really, really well in the group stage. We lost 5-2 to Trinity, but they scored 2 goals really late on, and then we lost 2-1 to St Paul's, having led for 70 minutes, and Clates, who wrote me into that, then decided to shin 2 into his own net that day. So, if it wasn't for Clates, I wouldn't have been there. But if it wasn't for Clates, we'd have beaten St Paul's. So, that was quite the experience. And then from there, players start coming in. You're delivering training sessions. The financial situation wasn't great at the club, so we were training 9 till 10 at Springfield, having to pay cash on the door. It was difficult, but we were getting 30 lads every single Tuesday, every single Thursday. It was great, and quite quickly that kind of evolved into a really, really competitive team. I think we lost 1 game that year, which was obviously curtailed from a COVID perspective. So that's kind of how we ended up then being offered the St Peter's job and moving up to St Peter's at 22. But yeah, in terms of local football, 21 would have been the first time I took a senior job, and 19 would have been the first time in Preston.
Yeah.
Now, I heard a little story about your first game in charge of St Peter's.
Yeah.
Confirm if this is completely accurate or not, but I don't know what the score was, but I believe
5-1.
5-1. I believe after the game you came back in and pretty firmly asserted how you thought about the performance, despite
I think maybe
turned a few heads.
A little bit of maybe a sloppy performance in the first one, but I was actually wrongfully dismissed in February 2019 by a referee, and I had a 2-game stadium ban, which is ludicrous because we don't have a stadium in Springfield. But anyway, I was on a stadium ban, so I actually wasn't allowed to be at the games. We were playing St Lawrence that day, that first day, and we went 1-0 up pretty early on. James Carr scored a worldie, he scored a hat-trick that day. And then we won 5-1. I don't think I was too harsh on them that day. I wasn't allowed to be there, so I think I maybe popped into the clubhouse and had a couple of drinks after once the referees had left. But the second game was against St Bernard's, and we were 2-0 up, still banned at this point. And yeah, I think I had to do a bit of a Mourinho and sneak into the changing rooms. So we lost the game 3-2.
I think that's the game.
Elliot Powell got sent off. Rightfully as well, by the way, for the record. He got sent off, and I had to, I felt like I needed to kind of stamp authority at that point. We had another game on the Tuesday night against St One's, so I snuck in through the fire exit at the back of the ground, and back in the changing rooms, and maybe read the riot act a little bit there, which, punchy when you haven't been around, but was needed, and then we turned in a great performance on the Tuesday night, so it seemed to have worked. And I think you've got to set your stall out early doors. Clearly, you're the youngest bloke in the room at periods, with the exception maybe of your Ritsimers and your Cars for that season. The youngest guy in the room, so people might think you're going to be a pushover, so you've got to lay down a marker fairly early on.
Yeah, I've known you for a long time, Paoli, and I know that you have
Lucky you.
I know you've got no problems being honest with people and you know, setting out straight. And but it must have been a little bit intimidating to sit in a room of blokes older than you and lay out your intentions pretty clearly.
Maybe. I don't think there's much more intimidating than being a privately educated southerner trying to do that up in Preston. So yeah, it is what it is.
That teach you a lot, did it?
Yeah. Learn when to keep your mouth shut. I think being the youngest guy is something that I've kind of been used to. I'm sure Harry's got exactly the same experience from his refereeing, but I've got it at work as well. The age thing kind of frustrates me a little bit. It is one of my gripes, that it's always kind of thrown back at you as a negative at times, but actually I think you can set your marker out and actually gain a lot more respect quite quickly as a young coach or young professional in any field. So I'm not daunted by a difficult conversation.
And you've coached cricket as well. We share an experience there with our time with the Old Victorians Cricket Club Academy. What do you feel are the differences between coaching cricket and football, and also the difference in coaching juniors and seniors?
Junior cricket was great. Like, I really enjoyed setting up the OV Academy, 2015, 2016. That was great, but obviously you've not quite got, similar to what Harry was saying there, you're not really in a team, you're doing a lot of the coaching on your own. Okay, you might have some parent helpers, and people like Stuart Hodgson were great for me at OVs, Neil Webster as well, in terms of how much they helped. But you don't have that team environment. You're not working as part of a group, but also clearly you're not going for a pint after the game with the team. So that difference to then senior football, where it is a group, you're bringing in personalities that you want in that area. You've got kind of a social scene to it as well. I got a lot more out of the senior aspect. I don't think I could go back and do junior coaching in any sport now. Cricket is maybe the one, because it's a nice day out in the sun usually. But yeah, senior football for me in particular, I got a lot more reward out of that than junior cricket.
Yeah, going back to strong personalities in the dressing room. Obviously, got one at St Peter right now, I suppose, with Peter Vincenti. Played for a decade at professional level in the Football League. I mean, how helpful has he been to you? Has he been able to offer any sage advice to you, or?
Probably not as much advice as he offers the referees. Vinny is a character that I think is completely misunderstood in terms of he's got that white line fever, and clearly he's a dedicated professional that achieved an awful lot in the game. And is one of the best products we've ever produced as an island. So he has that edge to him. Off the pitch, completely different. Really good lad around the group. Really good with the young players. Will ask and put heavy demands on them, which they might see as him being a cantankerous old git, but it's actually him trying to push them so that it makes his team better that he plays in on the Saturday. And from a coaching perspective, I couldn't thank Vinny enough. And I think list those coaches down there. Vinny's been a player coach for a number of years now at St Peter's. But every time that I need a conversation about how to deal with a player or how to deal with any sort of game plan, he's at the end of the phone. And the guy's got an unbelievably busy life: wife, 2 kids, dog, PFA job, Premier League stuff, St Peter's, and he's still there every week. Thursday night, Tuesday night if he can make it, Saturdays as well. He's there every single week, and he prioritises his football commitments to an unbelievable degree, but he still finds the time to help. Strong personality, yes, and he asks questions of you and he demands high standards, but he's happy to help you get to those high standards as well.
Yeah. And you said it before, you didn't have any appetite for coaching. That's obviously must have changed in you now. How's the appetite now? You won a lot with St Peter's last year. Won the gold in the Island Games in the summer. What's your appetite for what's next?
Yeah, I think I'm really lucky that I work in sport. So I've always tried to, maybe for the last few years in particular, run 2 kind of career pathways parallel my sport development career, which really enjoy and lucky to have that, as I've just said. But the coaching one is kind of on a day-by-day basis growing. Certainly that last season really gave me an insight into what you could achieve locally, but once you've achieved that, what's the next step? And at 25 and 26 next month, I feel like I've done quite a bit of the hard yards, a bit of the learning to put myself on a platform where hopefully I can take a next step. And if that's UK-based football, then great. I really enjoyed my time over there. I would like another opportunity. I think it's pretty well publicised now that this will be my last season at St Peter's, and I'll be honest, August time I was struggling to find the motivation to do that. We'd come off the back of 2 consecutive seasons anyway, and then I'd chosen to do the summer of football as well. But we literally came back from the Island Games on the Saturday, and we started putting the nets up at St Peter's on the Monday. So it was quite exhausting, and I think it's come at the right time now to leave St Peter's. I think the players are probably bored as anything as me as well, but in terms of aspirations, I'd love an opportunity at a higher level if I could, but you've got to go through a number of steps. Like Harry's doing the hard yards at the moment, it's exactly the same for coaching, and obviously it takes a little bit longer for coaching because you're judged on the success at the end of each season, so naturally you've got to wait another year for the next opportunity, and there's not a clear parallel kind of pathway as there is with refereeing. There's not a clear line to it. You're probably going to have some knockbacks, and I'm not daft enough to think that at some club it's not going to work as it has done so far, but hopefully the next opportunity I can make a success of that and just keep moving from there.
Absolutely. And talking about your coaching, describe maybe how you approach your coaching on the training pitch, and then also when it comes to game time. I mean, it's quite we talk about coaching philosophies nowadays, don't we?
Yeah.
That's kind of a buzzword. What would you say yours was?
So I think the main thing is about learning. So through my degree, I kind of really have an understanding and appreciation of a coaching syllabus, and I would really try and work us through that within a year. I think that does flow quite nicely through kind of cricket coaching through the year, where you've got nets on this day and you can work that through. But I tried to take that into football coaching. I think for the Island Games, that was really well received by a new group in terms of, this is what we're doing this week, lads, this is how it's going to relate to, and that relatability is obviously important, but this is what we're going to do, this is how it relates to Gozo on the first game, and then next week we're doing this, and this is how it relates to Gozo, and are always working through. And I think the lads have bought into that. Do ask questions of them. It's not dictating the answers to them. We want them to develop and learn both on the pitch but also kind of cognitively as well, and I think they've really bought into it. I'd like to think they have anyhow, and I think the results maybe suggest they have.
Yeah, I think that level of organisation from a coach is massive for a player's perspective. If you rock up and go, all right, let's just have a kickabout today, and if you rock up with a clear plan, right, this is our plan for the season, here's first month, second month, whatever, here's how we're going to structure it. People can sit there and go, oh, right, he's taking this as seriously as we want to take this.
Yeah, and there's obviously a degree of flexibility in that. So Tuesday nights really for us would be either about that social element, kind of fun competitive games, or some unit work. So I might take the attackers, Garts might take defenders, and work through some specific themes within that. And then come Thursday, we're really lucky to have a really dedicated reserve team coaching group as well, with Chris Riley and Carl Benet, and they would take the reserves away, work on their game plan for Saturday. We would take the first team away and work on that. So maybe more technical on a Tuesday, more tactical on a Thursday, and that seemed to have worked for us for a number of years now. So you need to have that plan, but also that degree of flexibility. What went well last week? What didn't go well? What are these guys' strengths? What are their guys' weaknesses? So, that degree of flexibility comes with that organisation as well.
I suppose also you must get a degree of satisfaction if what you're doing on the training ground is then replicated in a match.
Yeah, I think there's a built-in video of the Isle of Wight Island Games semi-final when we scored a set piece, and you've never seen Garts move so quick. Set pieces are Garts' bag, and I think Campbell nods it in at the front post, and Garts is jumping up, which takes some effort for the big fella. So it was. You do get a lot of pride in that. St Clement's last week, I think our shape was really good, and we had a lot of bodies missing, so we knew we had to be compact defensively. We didn't give away many chances. But take some pride in that. You're always critical of yourself because you want to make it absolutely perfect. But when things like set pieces are quite binary, you either score or you don't, Gart certainly gives it licks when we do.
And Island Games obviously was an amazing achievement and an amazing experience as well.
Yeah.
Was it a surprise when Martin Custody resigned? I mean, he got you in, didn't he? To help him out. Was it a surprise when he resigned? And how did you feel about taking on that role at quite a short notice?
Yeah, so Cass got me in kind of maybe 10 days, 2 weeks before the Alderney semi-final, which was quite last minute. Really enjoyed that trip. That's some day out. It's like going to Star Wars country. That was different. And then, I think Cass had a lot going on at that time within his personal life, and you can maybe see that Cass's kind of energy for football was dropping, and that's understandable. He's achieved a lot within local football as well, and they'd obviously had the Nations Cup. We'd won the semi-final. I think Cass was building up to a big crescendo really, and I think the Marathi maybe just felt like the right time for him to step away. Was it a surprise to get the role? Yeah, absolutely. I didn't. Whilst I got a really good relationship with Dave Kennedy, I presumed that there would be a lot of people knocking at the door. But then actually looking back, given the timelines associated in terms of we'd already submitted a provisional squad, we could only make limited changes to that. We'd work with the players for a prolonged period of time for the Marathi anyway. And Dave trusted me with that. His son in that, I don't take lightly. I think to trust me at my age was with no experience of representative football as a player, only 2 games experience as a coach, was a huge gamble from Dave and the association, and one that I'm really, really grateful for. And
obviously the achievement itself, did it exceed expectations and the experience as well? I mean, I was there at the Island Games, I was following you.
Yeah.
The whole event, should I say, the whole, not just the football, but everything that was going on, it was such a great thing to be part of, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you go into those first meetings and this is how we're going to win the Island Games, and I'm looking at Garts going, tell you what, it'd be great to get out of the group. And thinking we've got a pretty tough draw here. Menorca, no one knows anything about Gozo, but their Premier League looks absolutely class on YouTube. And then we knew we'd probably beat St Helena, and then you're thinking Marathi kind of semi-final against Guernsey at the track, that's going to be difficult. It'd be great to get to that kind of. It'd be in a medal match was basically the target. I think the Isle of Wight game that's the best game of football I've been involved in. I thought we dominated, then we got dominated, and then that last half an hour was just absolutely crazy. The subs, Heinze came on and completely changed that game. And I think once we'd won that, we knew we were going to win it. I remember sitting on the pitch with Garts afterwards, and we'd both FaceTimed home already, and I think we both said this one's ours at this point. You're never going to get a better opportunity. You kind of regret that thought when Ewan punches one into World's own net after a minute of the final. But yeah, it was I think we knew we'd won it after the semi-final.
And what was it like working with that group of players?
Different, really, really different. I probably got very, very comfortable within a group at St Peter's who, with the exception of maybe 7 or 8, we'd brought in or we'd brought through, so they're either kids that had come through or we'd brought them in from other clubs. And there's a core there, people that have been there a long, long time, Sam Luce, Elliot Powell, Mark Logue, etc. And there's more within there. But we got comfortable in that group. We knew the dynamics, we knew how to get the best out of each player. And you go into a changing room of your Luke Watsons, your James Kerrays, we'd coached Luke Campbell already in that season with COVID, but your Ewans, Lorne, people that we had no experience of. Whilst we knew them as blokes, we didn't know them as players. And that was a little bit daunting, but you could just see after the first week, I think, that they bought into it. And we bought into them as well. I think I said at the time, I can't repeat the halftime team talk against the Isle of Wight, but I certainly had a perception of that group of players, and I think a lot of people had a perception of that group of players when they were local club players, when they all played for St Paul's or Scottish, in terms of how they carried themselves, what their personalities were. When you get to know them, they are a completely different bunch of people. They are really, really grounded. Someone like Luke Watson, who's an absolute bulldog on the pitch, most lovely supporting lad off it, a really, really good level head. But you'd never know that unless you actually sat down and had a beer with him. And that group completely changed my outlook on them as people, as individuals, but also as a group.
Do you see that as well, Harry, from a refereeing perspective, working with some of the lads who have played for the Bulls, played for Jersey, played at a slightly higher level than local club football? Is there a difference in those guys?
Yeah, I think there has, and the big one's the intensity around how they treat their football. I was obviously at the Island Games with the women's squad, and I didn't know these lads off the pitch either, but when we were just sat around the hotel, every time we were sat there, everyone would stop for a chat, and you see this different side of people when they're not on the pitch. And it's different. I'm different on the pitch when I'm refereeing to what I'm going to be in the clubhouse after. Everyone is. You cross that white line, and that's football. So it is. There is a massive difference, and I think it would be strange if there wasn't, and you weren't slightly different on the pitch because you love what you're doing and you want to win. So that experience being in Guernsey with those lads, I think it's definitely helped me understand players better, spending that time away with a group and getting to know them in that way, as well as the local players is the same. They still turn up on a Saturday afternoon wanting to win their game of football, albeit it's a slightly lower level, being in the local league rather than the Bulls or for the JFA rep side. But at the end of the day, it's a game of football that people want to win. So personalities come out and people change on the pitch.
I think on that as well, the biggest compliment you could give that group of players was the award that they won from Steve Jacobs at the Island Games in terms of Team Spirit Award. That was the most pleasing element. Obviously, the gold medal's great, but how they represented not just Jersey, but the Jersey Football Association. There's a huge stigma, and the Island Games Association would absolutely admit to it, but there's the bloody footballers type stigma. Our lads were great. The same with the women's team as well. But our lads went to every single women's game. Yeah. The women did exactly the same back for us. They went down to the athletics. They went and watched the badminton. You try and get hold of them, and they're off watching left, right. Ewan followed Joe Hacker around for every hole of one of his rounds. A load of the lads watched a lot of the golf as well. The golfers then came and supported us. I think, personally speaking, I think the men's and women's football team brought the Island Games team together an awful lot, and that hasn't been the case in the past. And we said in our first meeting that we wanted to be the best Jersey Island Games team on the pitch, but the best off it as well, and I think they achieved both. Yeah,
so you're there as ambassadors as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
Ambassadors for the team, ambassadors for the islands. And like you say, I've heard the same where previous teams, not just Jersey, all the football teams from all the different islands, they were like completely separate from the games. But I mean, it must have been so important for everyone to buy into that whole spirit and ethos.
Yeah, I mean, look, they didn't get any help in hand whilst we were over there, by the way. Every Jersey athlete had the same, but we couldn't access the spa at the hotel. I remember speaking to you after the first game about it. Everywhere.
Couldn't get in the jacuzzi, could you?
Yeah. Gasp, got it. No one else was. So you had that. Every game that we went to, you had little kids there with their Gozo flags or their Menorca flags giving you absolute pelters. We went down to watch Guernsey one day, still in our tracksuits. We got absolute pelters, but no one nibbled at all. It was. Just took it for what it was, which was a hostile place, but a great place to win gold.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great achievement.
Chaps, a little bit of fun to finish. We've got a referee and a coach. VAR, very interesting sort of, new thing into the world of football. I'm personally interested in comparing it with, video analysis from other sports. What are your personal opinions on the state of VAR?
I think it's such a difficult topic, and like I said earlier, on a Saturday afternoon, I'm out refereeing a game. I have one look at top speed, and I have to make a decision on it. We're seeing these decisions every week in the Premier League where they're subjective. It's looked at 10 times at however many different angles and slow-mo to full speed, and people still don't agree with the decision. No matter if it's the referee making a decision there and then or if it's on VAR, people are going to disagree. VAR just allows it to be right in law more often than not, but as a football fan, there's times where I hate it. As a referee, there's times where I can hate it as well, but it's also helping the game be as fair as possible, I think. And there's a lot on Twitter every Saturday when an offside gets ruled out because someone's toenail's offside.
Yeah.
It's about the only decision in football that's factual.
Yeah.
And we're seeing all these people kick off saying, this isn't what we brought VAR in for, but that's the law. That's what football... It's offside at the end of the day.
It's still going through a bit of a teething stage.
Absolutely, and the change in PGMOL when the professional game match officials body had a different owner, a different CEO when it first came in. Now that Howard Webb's in charge, we've seen changes and we've seen more referees go to the screen and say, no, I'm sticking with my decision. I think, again, it's like I mentioned before, that clarity and being able to explain it. And now that Howard Webb's on Sky Sports every so often doing this, going through what the match officials have said, and also coming out and saying, look, we're sorry, we got it wrong. It just provides that sort of humility to it, saying, look, we got it wrong, we hold our hands up. But what does annoy me is when clubs are saying, this is wrong, we deserve some sort of comeback for it. It's, well, how many times did your players make a mistake? How many tactical mistakes may you have made? The referee might have made 5-6 mistakes in a game, but how many of them have actually cost you points or whatever? And it's that side of it that sometimes frustrates me. It's just someone doing their best. They put all of their life into it. Things are going to go wrong sometimes. Everyone's got to hold their hands up and say that sorry, which I think the referees have done this season more than ever when something's gone wrong.
I totally agree. And by the way, professional referees statistically do a heck of a good job. You know, you look at a linesman, they get most of those offside decisions spot on, and with the help of VAR now, they're obviously making pretty much all of them correct. But in terms of a development in how it works, I was having an interesting chat with a friend of mine about the use of the decision review system in cricket, in which each team gets to decide, we would like to review your decision there, match official. So rather than 5 minutes after an incident happening in a game of football, the ref gets a tap in the ear and go and have a look at the screen. What do you think about the chance of a captain coming up and going, oh, ref, we'll review your decision there?
It's difficult because it's so different to cricket. Like a lot of the time when it goes to DRS in cricket, it's either out or not. It's pitched outside leg, so therefore it's not LBW, or they go to ultra edge and it's clipped the side of their thigh pad and not glove or bat on the way through. Whereas football is so subjective in that sense. You might have a captain come up and say, we want that reviewed, we think it's a red card. They might then review it and it's a yellow, but VAR doesn't allow for that to happen, sort of thing. It has to be, they'll only review for a red card or a goal. So those sort of captain side of it I could see it working, but I could also see it being a hindrance and causing sort of unnecessary time, where we want the game to be sped up as much as possible, which is why we're seeing all this added time this season of we need the playing time. All of a sudden, the 7 minutes is going to become 12 because a captain's asked for a review on something that, in a match official sense, doesn't need reviewing and doesn't have an impact on the game.
Fair point, yeah, well said. Do you think it should be the referee on field going over to the screen and having a look, or should it be as simple as, Harry, we've looked at the replay, we think you need to change your decision?
I think it's that subjective matter where a referee might think something and the VAR thinks something slightly different, which is why sending to the screen is important in my view. And we see it where a match official goes to a screen and then says, no, I'm sticking with my decision. But having that look at it gives them the solidarity to either say, no, I got it wrong, or yeah, I think I've got that right. Rather than if it was just someone in your ear going, that's a red card, and then stopping the game and going, bang, there's a red, off you go. It just means that it is solely on them, rather than the bloke sat potentially 300 miles away at Stockley Park.
Paolo, from a coach's perspective, what would you change about it?
I was going to say, as a Leeds fan, it's not quite relevant.
Well, yeah, quite. I think I've probably gone full circle on it. I think at the time, from that kind of cricket background, thought VAR was going to be the absolute thing which made the game perfect. And I remember the exact moment that my opinion changed when the first time England had used it. Nations League semi-final. We were there, my brother, group of mates, we went out to Porto, sat there, Rashford runs through, scores 1-0 up against Holland, disallowed for exactly that, like half a foot offside, and you're like, no chance, is this a thing? So at that point, VAR, the worst thing in the world. Premier League then, with Leeds, granted, not much experience of it, but not a great deal of, we didn't feel like we got a great deal of benefit of it as Leeds fans, and now you go back into the Championship and it's not a thing, and it's great. Like, it looks and feels like the same football that we'll be at tomorrow is then, granted, at a much, much higher level, subjectively. It would be exactly the same for Leeds at Ellen Road on Saturday, and that feels like football. We're never going to make it perfect. I think you make a good point. I can't remember the exact percentage this year, but I think there's 92% of key match incidents are correct this year, which is their lowest in like 5 years. Players don't get 92% of things right. Managers don't either. I think the issue is that obviously by nature they're a key match incident, so when they go wrong they are blown up completely in the media, and it's difficult. I would probably do away with it, but just try and get the referees a bit better. And I think it comes then back to the video analysis stuff, which you talk about is even locally now, referees are tapping into the VO cameras that are used. Andy Dewhurst doing all of that kind of stuff for us and a number of clubs. But straight away, the Guernsey referees from our side, can we get the footage? Absolutely. They actually made 2 cracking key match decisions. Brent with a really, really tight offside, which he got bang on, and then we thought was a potential red card. But actually, looking back, it's probably an orange, maybe a yellow. And I think he probably did the right thing in terms of keeping the lads on the pitch. But you go back and see that, and again, Harry gets to see it once. I get to see it once from my angle where it looked worse. On the camera, it doesn't look anywhere near as bad as what we were shrieking for. So I would probably do away with the VAR. I'd maybe have a review system, like you said, for couple of incidents, maybe two a game. I don't think that would take much more time than the constant this is being reviewed anyway. So maybe 2 a game, but otherwise I would get rid of the continuous. You want to go and have a look at that, and it is a pain. But like Paul nicely put at the start, it's not really a consideration for me this season.
You see yourself working at Stockley Park one day, Harry?
Hopefully not with the way VAR is. But no, potentially. VAR is only going to come further and further into our game, I think, with the way the world's going, with technology advancing. It's only a matter of time till it is in the Championship, and Elliot gets the joys of it on a Saturday afternoon when Leeds actually finally get on the TV and don't kick off at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
I suppose from my perspective, when I see it, again, it comes down to that thing about interpretation still. Mm-hmm. So even if it does go to a video referee, it's still that person's interpretation of the law in certain situations, like especially with penalties. Has there been enough impact to bring him down and things like that? And one person to the next is going to have a different thought, aren't they? Yeah. So that's where I think VAR struggles.
I think as well there's an element of it, and Harry might disagree with me on this bit for the first time in this podcast, but referees try where they can to back a referee, and I think there's an element of that with VAR where you clearly think that should definitely be reviewed, and it hasn't been.
Yeah.
Vinny would then support me on this one as well. He'd probably think it's a great idea, but kind of that ex-professional in the room of actually there's nothing in that, get it gone, or actually there's something in that.
That came out not long ago, didn't it?
Yeah, but you look at
a shocker and they went, no, we don't want to.
You look at cricket, I know it's completely different, but the soft signal now for catches, etc. They're reviewed, but a lot of match referees and TV umpires in cricket are ex-professionals. People like Chris Broad, who can then go, yeah, he probably has caught that, and I think there is a place for that ex-professional kind of consultant within the process.
Well, we've had that conversation a few times, haven't they? Well, can you get more ex-pros officiating? And it doesn't seem to happen anywhere. It doesn't happen in Jersey. Doesn't happen in the professional game in England either.
I'm not surprised. The way those guys play their careers, hurling abuse at those blokes for 15 years, and then all of a sudden they want to retire and become one. I can't see.
I mean, Vinny's refereed a couple of training games.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
And he's actually a referee assessor. He would say he's great. So he's absolutely 100 out of 100.
Have you refereed a game?
I have refereed a game yet, 2.
And how do you get on? How do you find it?
Thanks. I've been waiting for an hour for someone to ask that question. It's Trinity St Paul's over 35s. I got 200 out of 200. So technically, I should have won referee of the year.
Did you actually give a foul? Or just say, yeah, crack on, lads?
Yeah. Well, a couple of yellow cards.
What do you reckon, Harry? Would Elliot make a good your full-time referee?
You'd give it a decent shot, I reckon. Decent football background, which is always a bonus when people come in and understand football. I think that's a big thing where Powell said earlier, I have that understanding of football, so I can understand frustration quite a lot in games. So it is that understanding. You just need to touch up on his knowledge of law.
I can guarantee.
And a bit of fitness.
I can guarantee you would absolutely love going into the back pocket.
Quite a euphemism.
Someone would take someone out last man, and you'd be
I'd be straight in for that. I think there's an area as well where we don't actually use managers particularly well enough, full stop, for refereeing. So there's been a couple of, I know that JFA have looked for referee observers and match observers, but you have to be a referee. Well, by kind of association, we don't have enough of them, so we're unlikely to have enough observers on that point as well. But there's obviously an odd amount of teams in the Premiership this year. You know, that spare Premiership manager could technically go and referee and observe games. And I think there are a couple of referees, if you're stood there watching, like I was stood watching St Clement's against North this year down at St Clement's, and they do actually come up and go, do you reckon I got that one right? Yeah, I'd have probably given that. Oh, well, I'm getting pelters. Yeah, well, I can understand why they're giving you pelters as well, because it was a 50-50, but from my angle, I'd have given it. I think it was a goal for St Clement's at the back stick, where the lad just got up above him, but they thought it was kind of a push on the lad at the back stick, but I thought he just got up earlier. So, yeah, you had, I think there's an element there for maybe some feedback both ways, and similarly, you know, we fill in a report on referees at the end of games, which do they get read?
Yeah.
Yep. So we fill in a report at the end of games. We look
at what time it's come through, and if it's Saturday at 4:30, we quite often go.
If it's been written in the car park.
But there's nothing back for managers in terms of how we conduct ourselves. And I know that me and Gartz and definitely my dad at St John's would have been complete pains. I think we'd now be considered probably one of the slightly calmer ones.
Can we confirm that, Harry?
Most are pretty good over here, though, to be fair. There's very few managers where you turn up on a Saturday and think that they're going to cause you a problem. I can't think of anyone at all that you're dreading turning up on a Saturday knowing that a manager's going to kick off. Just doesn't really happen, which is...
Can't say the same for referees. There are a few that you rock up and dread.
You've done well there not to completely throw yourself under the bus. If you come out and named something, fixture that would have been.
I think it's also testament to the setup in Jersey football, where everyone does try and get on, and everyone has a pretty good understanding of the game, and everyone's differing roles.
Well, the difficulty is how close you all are, isn't it? So you come in here today and completely spray referees, and then you don't get anything tomorrow because Harry's on the line. So
you won't get anything from me anyway. Don't
worry. So yeah, I think there's that proximity bit. So you don't want to burn too many bridges, and maybe that was a learning curve for me, especially coming back from the UK, where you don't then see the guys at West Horton because they're in Bolton and you're in Preston, so you never see them again until the home leg. So you can be a little bit more vocal or a tad more confrontational.
Yeah, it's very different over here when you're there on a Saturday and then 5 hours later at 10 o'clock you see them walk into chambers.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been forced to referee quite a few times against my will, again, because, you know, in junior football, and a referee hasn't been able to be appointed. And I can say I absolutely hate it. I really do. You know, and I remember Ian Cox, when I was still playing, saying to me, you know, why didn't you take up refereeing? And I was like, no. And my experience of refereeing since then, that made it clear to me I couldn't do it. It is a much harder job than is appreciated. And I found it really difficult. And I was, like you described, Elliot, I just sat in the middle and just let everything go.
Yeah, I think there's a place for that. I think Harry's probably at the more lenient end of the scale as well, especially with the UK experience that tackles fly in and you're a little bit more happy to let it go. I think we are a little bit insular as a referee community. We don't have many off-island experience for our guys, and for some of them, you know, the biggest games that they can do is an Upton or a maybe Guernsey Alderney, those kind of games, but they're not physically at the same level as a UK game. And whilst tackles might fly in, you know, there's not the same appreciation of that's just part of the game. And I think yeah, I would much be on the arms out, let things go, let's crack on.
I think on that though, it's again what a referee wants to let happen. Some referee, I like a physical game, so I'm going to blow my whistle as few times as possible for fouls, and I'm going to try. I also like to just try and play on. So even if there is that shirt pull, there's the arm round. If he's got the pass off, I'm going to play it, even if it's gone backwards and they've kept the ball. I like to just try and play on. I don't like to be stopping the game all the time. But then other referees, just the way they referee, will give lots of fouls for the smaller things.
But as long as you're consistent with that, teams know what to expect.
I think that's exactly the thing that you want on a Saturday.
Yeah.
You know that referees are going to be different, but you want the same level of consistency throughout the game.
I think as well, in terms of that consistency, the one thing that I'd love to see brought into Jersey football in terms of refereeing, which I know is difficult from a population perspective in terms of we don't have enough, but a smaller pool of Premiership referees. I think the kind of broad church of Premiership referees at the moment is too vast. So you've got one end, like the exact example Harry's just given, one end that lets everything go, one end where you can't fart on the pitch without getting a foul given against you. And I think we have to get to a more narrow, more consistent basis so that you aren't going from a Tuesday night. Well, we've had it this week: Saturday with a Guernsey official, Tuesday with a Jersey official, Saturday with another Jersey official. They will all referee in completely different ways, which I understand. But actually, you'd think that it would be more consistent on a smaller island, and I would hope that that's something we can bring in where there's a level.
That's a reflection of their own personality, I suppose, when they're refereeing.
Maybe, and I think it's a reflection of personality, capability to a degree in terms of how they can get around the pitch, what they perceive to be a foul, their playing spirit, all of those kind of things. But that's what I'm saying, if we can try and narrow up that, what is it, level 4 eyes, the highest you can get over here?
Yeah, technically, sort of. I'm 4, but we've got 3-4 eyes as well.
But level 4 as a minimum for Premiership referees, I think it would be great, would be absolutely ideal, because there's not too many of those, is there? And Mark does a great job with the appointments, by the way. It's a thankless task as well.
Not fancy doing it. So.
No, and not teaching how to suck eggs, but I do think that's one of the frustrations that there's such a diversity in terms of abilities within the top flight.
And we've had interesting, not going to dive too far into it, but we've had interesting incidences with Marathis over recent times. Do you think, open question to both of you, do you think there should be neutral referees across the Marathi board, juniors, seniors?
So I'm going to jump in, I think, before Harry comes in on this one. I completely get it. So I completely get the question from a coach's point of view. You work very, very hard for that one-off game. So I think Jody I've got a good relationship with from St Peter's, clearly, and they've worked awfully hard for that Marathi that's maybe in question here. I completely get Jim Fowler's point as well of how disrespectful it is to referees. I think you got the brunt end of that, Paul, to be fair.
Well, it was my piece. I wrote it, so that.
Yeah.
It wasn't forced.
I mean, it was kind of tongue in cheek, really. Not that Jim took it that well, but I suppose it was just worthy of the conversation. It wasn't to suggest that we definitely should or definitely shouldn't, but
I think Jim's comment on their own podcast where he said, I have been in the middle of a semi-final game where I don't know whether I should send someone off because it impacts the final.
Yeah,
that's clearly not a great position to be in.
No.
We were really lucky. We had Luke Pattermore last year, really, really good against Alderney, but you don't want them to be in that position. I would like to see it be neutral. Personally, it's in the middle. I think the lino's absolutely fine. No one could say what happened in the Marathi final last year was because Richard Dyer had a Jersey badge on his shirt. Absolutely not. It was a difficult decision. I think he got it 100% right, but I completely understand why people would perceive that. I think that still then gives the opportunity for local officials to be involved in those games, maybe not in the middle, and I appreciate that's not the centre role, but it comes back to the point earlier about integrity, and I think there is greater integrity in those matches. Not that any Jersey or Guernsey official would go out to be biased. Completely.
Not consciously.
No, but I don't even think subconsciously.
There's going to be a subconscious maybe element, like what Jim said in his
maybe it goes the other way
in Alderney.
Exactly. Yeah,
there's a subconscious
and maybe it goes the other way, and I just don't think we need to put them in those positions.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to think the opposite here.
I fully understand the perspective that it's the same for the players working to get in that representative squad. for a referee doing the junior Marathi or being appointed to the Marathi semi-final is the be all and end all at the end of the day. Where I know this year we have a cup final seminar every year where the appointments for the cup finals get given out, and whoever's got that Marathi line at home, that is the biggest possible thing you can get. Same as if you were playing in it. If you were in that Marathi squad, that's the biggest thing you can have as a player. And again, any of the junior Marathis, whether it's through from under 15 to under 21, being appointed to that game as the person in the middle is massive for any referee. And obviously you made the point that they're never going to go out with that thought of, I'm from Jersey, I'm refereeing Jersey, I'm going to give them everything. You probably unconsciously go slightly the other way, and you probably are slightly more harsh on your own island because you've got that, which again it does show the potential of saying, well, if there was someone from the FA, that's completely eliminated. But it's at the end of the day, it's still interinsular football, so why are we taking away from the interinsular referees who work all season the same as the players for that opportunity?
Where do you draw the line at that point as well?
Yeah.
Like, does the Upton then become neutral?
Because obviously the Upton used to be an FA appointment. It used to be someone from the Football League would referee the Upton.
I didn't know.
I completely understand that. I think I would make the difficult decision of they're neutral. I think senior Marathi, so I think 18s, 21s and men's and women's Marathi should be neutral. I think kind of Star Trophy, all of that kind of level could be interinsular referees, but then does domestic football then, like Harry said, to go back to an FA appointment for that? Probably wouldn't. Probably say that domestic football is refereed by domestic referees, and then that becomes your pinnacle. Yes, that means your pinnacle's slightly lower than it is at the moment, but it's still, the Uptons are a pretty good standard of football. And at times, I certainly can vouch for this from last year. The Upton was a better game of football than the Marathi last year.
Yeah.
More open, more end-to-end, teams flying in. The Marathi was
more cagey.
Yeah, it's because no one wants to lose it. So actually, there's more decisions maybe to make in an Upton.
There wasn't much last season. There wasn't too much, but
the lads
you were well too good on the day.
Sorry.
No, go on.
It was interesting that the Marathi has always had a neutral ref ever since the second ever Marathi, and that was because the first one was Jersey versus Alderney in the final, I believe, at Springfield in 1905 or 6, and they had a Guernsey referee, and his decisions were so bad he was chased off the pitch by the Jersey natives. So.
No comment. What about you, Harry? If the senior Marathi came your way, would you want to do it?
Honestly, no, because I wouldn't want to be in that position where you've got that scrutiny of it's a Jersey lad.
I agree. To be honest.
Especially on that biggest stage of all in the men's and women's Marathis, I think that is right to be an FA appointment neutral, someone from the FA, normally someone either on their way up in the men's or women's game or on their way out. Obviously it's been a Football League referee for years on the men's Marathi. In the last 2 seasons for the women's Marathi, it's been someone who's been promoted from the National League into the Championship for the women's game that season. And an up-and-coming referee, so providing those opportunities for them as well to get away from the mainland and come and do something different, where I suppose our football environment is very different, and to have that understanding of how much it means to us as people from Jersey to go out and win that Marathi is something for them to understand and get a different perspective of football.
I think the fact that Harry maybe just said there that we wouldn't feel comfortable in that situation. I get that it's slightly tapered down at an under 21 level or an under 18 level. Probably speaks volumes. You struggle to do St Peter's under 13s against St Clement, so quite clearly the personal conflict is difficult to wrestle with, and there's no real easy answer to it. But I think that the best answer for the integrity of the games is a neutral ref.
Yeah.
Chaps, I think that's a wonderful place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us today. That was fascinating. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great to see you both,
having us.
and wish you the best.
Pleasure, gentlemen.